My name is Ellie McDermott, and I will be telling you about my project. So, this topic was introduced to me when my parents were talking about how algae blooms were ruining sea life in Florida by taking away the oxygen and suffocating the plants and animals. There are two different types of harmful algae blooms: red tides, which are produced in salt water and can cause respiratory irritation, watery eyes, a runny nose, and a scratchy throat due to the toxins released; and blue-green algae, which is freshwater and can cause dermatitis, and if drank could make you seriously ill or even die. So, when I looked up algae blooms, I found out that fertilizer used for giving nutrients to grass was a main component of producing these algae blooms. So I wondered if there was a ground cover that was just as good as grass, but used less fertilizer. So my problem is in Florida, fertilizer used to keep grass alive is going into the ocean and creating algae that is ruining sea life. So we need to find a plant substitute for grass that doesn't need fertilizer. So I asked what ground cover is the best replacement for grass because it needs smaller amounts of fertilizer to help reduce the amount of harmful algae blooms. I realized I needed a scientific source to measure the health of my plants, so I researched and found an app. I reached out to the company to see if they would support me in using their technology. The program measures digital greenness color index and plant health. To use the program, I open the app and take a picture of my plant on the board and click on the yellow circle, green circle, and then the plant's leaves. This compares the green color of each plant. Finally, I press save and repeat this for all of my plants. For my experiment, I needed to test different ground cover plants. So, after my research on plants that need lower amounts of fertilizer, I went to my local nursery to find them. It is important to me that you could easily collect the ground cover just as you can with grass. I got Creeping Charlie, Ornamental Peanut, Blue Days, Sweet Alyssum, and Empire Zozias, which was my grass and my control. I used Empire Zozias instead of St. Augustine because we couldn't find St. Augustine and Empire Zozia was at the local nursery. We then replaced the soil with one without any fertilizer, and my experiment could begin. Since this was time-consuming, my mom helped me. My hypothesis is if we test the DGCI, Digital Greenness Color Index, of the plants, then Blue Days, with the scientific name of Evolvus glomeratus, will have the highest DGCI at the end of 6 weeks because it has the lowest nitrogen requirement level, likes warm climates, and is low maintenance. After I collected the plants from the local nursery that could be ground cover, and I replaced the plant soil with one without any fertilizer, I then determined the plant's water need based on the Orange County grass schedule, which is every Sunday for 1 inch. Using that amount, I watered my plants every Sunday and used a scale set to milliliters for accuracy and precision. And then I downloaded the app and bought the board. And every other day, I measured the plant's color index. I did this for 6 weeks. Then I emailed the information to myself and inserted it into a Google Sheets. The first scatter graph is a plot of the DGCI for each plant over time. It shows a plot of the DGCI for each plant over time. It shows us the trend line for each plant and the increase, decrease, or maintenance of the slope. The second graph shows us whether or not the trend line for the DGCI increased or decreased and about how far. It is clear from the data here that Creeping Charlie species has the most positive trend line and increased DGCI over the span of 6 weeks for 2 out of 3 plants. The third Creeping Charlie plant had the least negative trend line, with a slope of -1.1. This means that the creeping Charlie increased or maintained its health, determined by the level of greenness. Based off of the data, creeping Charlie would be an excellent ground cover replacement for grass because it has the highest increase of its greenness and health. My hypothesis was incorrect though, because blue days did not increase in DGCI, and in fact decreased in health. Creeping Charlie could be the ground cover plant that would best help prevent algae blooms by decreasing fertilizer runoff instead of using grass. One thing that was interesting was that the ornamental peanut didn't do that good, considering that it is a legume and it makes its own nitrogen. A limitation to my study was weather. Rain could have given the plants extra moisture that couldn't be precisely measured. Also, changes in temperature and sun can affect plants in different ways. We brought plants inside on cold nights, but the temperatures could have hurt the plants that prefer hot climates. Another limitation that influenced the outcome was the amount of data that was taken on each plant. More data for each plant could have given better outcomes because there would be less influence by outliers. To enhance my research, I could collect more data, such as taking 5 data points of each individual plant, which would be about 3 times the amount of data points from before, and averaging them to reduce outliers. Then the results would be more quantitative and easier to see a clear trend. For example, plants that are green and have patches of brown could be completely misread if I recorded one of those patches and made the whole plant look brown based on the DGCI. So, more data points can give me a more accurate picture of the plant health. If everyone was to replace their ground cover with creeping Charlie, then we would decrease the runoff of fertilizer and therefore help sea life, pets, and yourselves. This is my site page. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed my project.